My fiancé, the man who had used cold indifference to torment me for 3 whole years, publicly proposed to his first love at a rare high society party in Hong Kong. After that, I posted on social media bragging that I was about to get married, but in the middle of the night he called me. I never said I would marry you. I simply let out a soft laugh and replied, and I never said you were the groom. Soon after, a set of photos suddenly spread across social media, shaking the entire city. That was when I finally realized I had been reading a story with no ending, spending my whole life trapped in a dead end. Please listen to my story. When I finished putting on the gorgeous dress and stood up, the makeup artist couldn't help but sigh. "Miss Evans, you look stunning in this dress." I whispered my thanks, but when I opened the door and stepped outside, the crowd downstairs was already in an uproar. Through the golden revolving door, I saw Ethan, my fiancé of 3 years, appear with a beautiful young woman beside him. The ridiculous thing was that her dress was identical to mine. Tonight was one of the rare high-class banquets Hong Kong had hosted in more than 15 years. Everyone there was a top-tier figure with sharp, discerning eyes. And of course, they instantly noticed that I was only wearing a knockoff. In the 21 years of my life, this was the first time I had ever dressed up so extravagantly, only to become nothing more than a glamorous clown. The woman next to him spoke first. "Who is she?" Ethan gently held the other woman's hand and replied, "My girlfriend, but after tonight, she'll be my fiancée." Then he looked at me, his eyes cold. "The engagement between me and the Evans family has already been cancelled." He wasn't wrong. Without the 1 billion in betrothal money he paid at the time of our engagement, the Evans family would have gone bankrupt long ago. It was that money that allowed my family to continue living in luxury. Ethan knelt on one knee, took out a ring, and proposed to Hannah. She burst into tears and threw herself into his arms, and he gently wiped her tears, comforting her and kissing her. I stood there watching Hannah being surrounded by powerful, influential women, chatting happily. After tonight, she would no longer be a minor celebrity or a despised mistress. And I, after tonight, would become someone who no longer had a place to stay in this harbor city. "Can I pass through?" A voice behind me pulled me back from my thoughts. I turned around and saw 2 aristocratic-looking girls holding trays of food, staring at me with obvious disdain. I quickly stepped aside. "But her dress looks so cheap," one girl whispered. "Right, I don't even know what kind of fabric that is. I'd probably break out in a rash if I touched it," the other added. "And she still dares to stand here. How embarrassing." Keeping my expression steady, I quietly walked toward the lounge area in the corner of the room, pretending I hadn't heard their cruel words. My phone suddenly rang. It was my mother. I picked up, and her voice came through filled with shame and anger. "Evans, the Clark family wants to cancel the engagement. We have to return the 500 million in betrothal money. 3 years and you still couldn't keep a man's heart. Useless. You'll handle that money yourself." Then she hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling as if my heart were being squeezed, my chest tightening until I thought I might faint. The dazzling lights and the laughter around me no longer had anything to do with me. I just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. "I heard Mr. Turner returned to Hong Kong yesterday. He might come to the party tonight," someone whispered. "No way, he almost never attends events like this," another replied. "True enough," the first voice said. "The last time he appeared in public was on a government broadcast." I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to suppress the pain as I opened my bag to search for my medicine. The small noise I made caused the 2 people nearby to instantly stop talking, and after a moment of silence, they slowly walked away. The pain in my chest gradually turned into sharp spasms. The tight dress made it almost impossible for me to breathe. I frantically searched for my medicine, struggling to open the zipper of my dress to breathe more deeply. But every attempt ended in failure. Earlier today, my mother had ordered the house staff to give me a new set of nails, delicate and overly ornate, but now they had become a dangerous obstacle. I lifted my head, gasping. My long hair was a tangled mess covering my face, and my pale lips were turning gray. Not far away, the party was still going on in full excitement. My ex-fiancé and his new love were probably enjoying themselves on the dance floor. And I, I would quietly die on this empty deck. "Mr. Turner, would you like to go inside?" a voice asked. Logan Turner answered with a brief shake of his head and silently accepted a box of cigars from his assistant. He pulled out a light gray cigar, opened a small, exquisite tin, and gently brushed the tip across the dark brown powder. Then he lifted it to his lips and extended a hand behind him. His assistant immediately stepped forward with a lighter. Logan lit the cigar and said calmly, "All of you go ahead. I'll join you after I finish this." Then he walked a few steps to the railing of the deck. "The wind is strong, sir. Please be careful," someone reminded him. The group surrounding him gradually dispersed. This time, returning to Hong Kong, Logan Turner seemed determined to take another step forward, so that in the future, when he said one word, no one would dare say two. Tonight, the host of the banquet had used every possible connection to invite him. Normally, he had no interest in such events, but since his family had nagged him about marriage the moment he returned home yesterday, giving him a headache, he decided to attend, just to get away. His cigar was only halfway finished when his gaze suddenly stopped at a slender figure in the distance. He intended to put out the cigar and leave, but then he heard a strange sound on the deck and slowly turned back. Under the faint moonlight, a small, unsteady silhouette wavered near the railing. I must have looked as pale as a ghost, the dim light illuminating my contorted face twisted in pain. Seeing a tall stranger standing there, I felt as if I had found a lifeline. I reached out and grabbed his sleeve tightly. Instinct for survival pushed me to pull his hand toward my chest. My breaths were sharp and uneven, my heart beat in chaos. He glanced at me once, and it was as if he instantly understood what was happening. He knelt down on one knee, clasped my wrist with his long fingers, and asked coldly, "Where's the zipper of your dress?" But I couldn't speak. All I could do was clutch his hand desperately, trying to pull it toward my chest. Logan frowned slightly, then quickly brushed my hand aside and removed the intricate clasp at my back, finally allowing me to breathe. He lowered his head to check the neckline of my dress, and one by one, the hidden, delicate buttons began to come undone under his skilled fingers. I could feel the layers constricting my chest and lungs slowly loosening. Air flooded into my lungs, and I inhaled deeply, greedily. I completely forgot that I was wearing a tight body-hugging dress with only adhesive covers underneath. Now that the front of my dress had been opened, everything underneath was exposed in a way that would leave anyone mortified. It wasn't until a thick men's suit jacket was draped over my shoulders that I snapped back to reality. I bit my lip for a long moment, then lowered my head in embarrassment and whispered, "Thank you." "Can you stand?" he asked. I nodded softly. One hand clutched the edge of the suit jacket, the other held the railing as I slowly stabilized myself. "Do you want me to contact your family or your friends?" he continued. I shook my head immediately. "No, that won't be necessary. I just need to rest for a moment." His phone suddenly rang a few times. I watched him step farther away, pull out his phone, and answer the call. "I told you, I'll handle the marriage situation myself. Don't worry, I won't let Grandpa be disappointed." His voice carried a hint of tension, and right after speaking, he lit another cigarette. The flame flickered across his cold expression, and I suddenly realized this man looked familiar, as if I'd seen him somewhere before. Just then, he turned his head. Our eyes met, and I immediately looked down. He ended the call and walked back toward me. The faint smell of smoke drifted over, making me cough lightly. He quickly put out the cigarette and said politely, "Sorry." Then he pointed to the suit jacket on my shoulders. "Just hand it to a staff member when you're done with it." My face grew hot, and I nodded softly. His gaze dropped to my hands, which were still gripping the edge of his suit jacket. Inside, all I had was a thin adhesive cover. My skin brushed lightly against the delicate lining, creating a kind of intimacy only I was aware of. Feeling uncomfortable, I lowered my chest a little. But just as he turned to leave, I suddenly spoke up. I heard your phone call earlier." He stopped and looked at me as if waiting. "Can I discuss something with you?" I lifted my head and met his eyes. "Maybe you need a wife. I won't cause trouble. I mean, a wife who can disappear anytime you want." My voice trembled. "I need $500 million to buy myself a little freedom." "A business deal?" he asked, his tone cold. What kind of transaction does Miss Evans want with me? I was so nervous I didn't even notice he somehow already knew my name. Don't you need a wife? I asked softly. I took a deep breath and looked straight at him, forcing myself to stay determined. I won't cause trouble. I'll cooperate completely to help you get whatever you want. And when you don't need me anymore, I'll disappear. I won't bother you. He stood under the moonlight, wearing a silver-gray shirt and dark slacks, tall and lean yet strong. His sharp eyes and refined features were framed by the soft glow of the night, and the luxury watch on his wrist looked expensive enough to buy the entire yacht. What do you want in return? He asked, his gaze icy. I swallowed hard and answered quietly. I need 500 million. I lowered my head, unable to look at him. Strangely, in front of this man I barely knew, I felt as though I could reveal all my weakness and helplessness. My fiancé wants to cancel the engagement and is demanding half the betrothal money back, 500 million. I can't afford it. I let out a small, bitter laugh. Cancel the engagement? He asked sharply, his eyes cold like a blade. Yes. I let out a faint smile and lifted my head. The sea breeze swept my long hair across my face. I stared out into the vast, uncertain darkness with lost eyes. I don't have anywhere left to go, I said softly. So I want to salvage whatever dignity I have left. He studied me for a moment. I accept the deal, but I have one condition. I lifted my eyes to his, stunned by his words. 3 days from now, we'll register our marriage. So soon? I gasped. You heard the phone call, he said. My grandfather's health isn't good. He wants to see his granddaughter-in-law enter the family as soon as possible. Does that bother you? He raised an eyebrow. I quickly shook my head. No, it doesn't. Then it settled. The sea breeze grew stronger, whipping my hair across my face. He stepped forward and gently tucked the messy strands behind my ear. The day after tomorrow I'll send someone to pick you up, he said. But how do you know where I live? I asked hesitantly. He didn't answer. And as he pulled his hand away, I thought his fingertips brushed against my cheek, but maybe it was just my imagination. He had been gone for a long time, yet I still stood there in a daze, feeling as if I had just woken up from an unreal dream. Until Ethan, completely drunk, suddenly staggered toward me and grabbed my wrist tightly. Evans, for 3 years He glared at me, his eyes bloodshot. I've always waited for you to bow your head and beg me, he said. As long as you lowered yourself like other women, forget 1 billion, 10 billion, I'd still give you a discount. You're drunk, Ethan. I tried to push him away, but dealing with a drunk man was nearly impossible. He stared fixedly at the suit jacket I was wearing. Whose jacket is that? It has nothing to do with you, I replied. Nothing to do with me? Ethan let out a twisted laugh, his face warped with anger. Evans, let me see who dared to touch the woman of Ethan Chu. He yanked the suit jacket hard off my shoulders. I tried to hold on to it, but it was completely useless. The sea wind howled under the moonlight, waves rolling rhythmically below. Evans, Ethan shouted, his eyes blazing red. Right then, a shrill scream pierced the air. Evans, how could you? The crowd erupted in murmurs. Oh my God, how dare she take off her clothes to seduce someone else's fiancé? Ethan stared at me in shock, while Hannah, with tears streaming down her face, rushed over and slapped me hard. What are you doing? A deep male voice cut sharply through the chaos. That's enough. Hannah's raised hand froze midair as Ethan instinctively pulled her behind him. I panicked and stumbled back a step, hurriedly using my arms to cover my exposed chest. The noise drew the attention of everyone around us, then suddenly someone gasped. It's Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner? Which one? Who else could it be? Logan Turner. My eyes widened as I looked toward the man standing behind the crowd. It was him. The one who had helped me open the dress on the deck. The man to whom I had boldly offered a marriage contract in exchange for 500 million. Logan Turner glanced at me once, then looked away. He whispered something to the female assistant beside him. She immediately stepped through the crowd, reached me, and gently draped the suit jacket back over my shoulders. Miss Evans, let me take you downstairs to rest, the assistant said. I stiffened but nodded, whispering a thank you as I followed her. Still, I couldn't stop myself from turning back. The crowd had already stepped aside, standing silently with respectful posture. Mr. Turner, this is all a misunderstanding, Ethan said, now much more sober. He spoke carefully. A misunderstanding? Logan's voice remained calm, completely devoid of anger, yet carried an undeniable authority. I slowed my steps and moved closer to the corner. The assistant didn't rush me, she simply waited patiently. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. Hannah is my girlfriend. She must have misunderstood the situation and lost her composure. A flicker of displeasure crossed Logan's eyes. I didn't expect someone from Hong Kong's high society to lack basic manners like that. Ethan froze, his face flushing red, while Hannah nearly burst into tears. Logan gave a quiet order to his staff. Escort the girl off the yacht. No, Ethan, Hannah cried, clinging desperately to Ethan's sleeve. She refused to let go. Ethan, who had survived years in the entertainment industry, immediately understood how serious this was. Being forced off the yacht in the middle of the banquet would become news all over Hong Kong. It would ruin him, and he'd never recover. Mr. Turner, Hannah knows she was wrong, Ethan pleaded. Please give her another chance. Logan gave him a cool look. If you insist, you may leave with her. Ethan froze. Then silently, he withdrew his hand. Hannah was quickly escorted off the yacht. The crowd on the deck gradually dispersed. Everything ended with a quietness no one had anticipated. Mr. Turner, the assistant called softly, bringing me back to reality. I turned around. When I saw Logan Turner walking toward me, he gestured for his assistant to step aside before gently asking, Evans, are you scared? I shook my head. No, I'm not. Let me take you somewhere to rest, he said. His fingers brushed lightly against my wrist. Is that okay? My head was spinning so badly that all I could do was nod and let him guide me. But after just 2 steps, I felt something cold slip down my chest and I froze. A smooth, flower-shaped adhesive breast cover slid out from under the suit jacket and fell to the floor. Logan glanced down at the fallen piece. I was so mortified I wished the ground would swallow me whole, but he simply crouched down, picked it up, folded it in half, and slipped it into his pocket. It's dirty. You can't use it again, he said calmly. I'll have someone bring you clean clothes later. My face burned so hot it felt like it might catch fire. I whispered a tiny, embarrassed, okay. Let's go. He took my hand again and led me down a short hallway to a resting room. He brought me inside, but he had work to deal with, so he left shortly after. I sat alone in the quiet room for a long time before I finally calmed down. When my mind cleared, I realized something. At first he called me Miss Evans, but later he called me Evans. He knew exactly who I was. The female assistant returned with a set of clean clothes. I went to shower and change, then carefully folded Logan Turner's suit jacket and placed it in a bag, planning to dry clean it before returning it to him. Mr. Turner said if you want to go home, I'll take you, the assistant, perhaps in her 40s, told me. She looked professional and sharp. I'm sorry. Could you tell Mr. Turner that I'll take the jacket home to dry clean it first? I asked. Miss Evans, that's not necessary, just leave it to me, she said with a polite smile. I didn't argue further. I handed her the bag, then suddenly asked without thinking, how does Mr. Turner know my name? She just smiled. That's Mr. Turner's personal matter. When I left the yacht, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Evans. It's Logan Turner. Save my number. I hesitated a few seconds before replying, okay. I saved it. The day after tomorrow I'll come pick you up. Get some rest until then. He didn't send anything else after that. When I returned to the Evans house, it was already late at night, yet everyone was still awake. The atmosphere was heavy, and the moment they saw me, my mother stood up, her tone sharp. Evans, have you thought this through? How could you make Ethan angry enough to cancel the engagement? That's right, Evans, my sister-in-law chimed in. You know our family relies on the Chu family to keep our business running. How are we supposed to come up with $500 million now? I'm about to have our 3rd child. Do you want this whole family to starve? One after another, they scolded me, blaming me for not keeping Ethan's heart. Blaming me for failing to secure the engagement. Blaming me for ruining their comfortable life. But when they pushed me out as a sacrifice to protect the healthy eldest daughter of the family, did anyone ask if I wanted that? When they took $1 billion from the Chu family as betrothal money to patch up their finances, did anyone give me even the smallest benefit? And now that the Chu family wanted to cancel the engagement, refused to return a single cent, and demanded I pay back half, they still expected me to bear all responsibility. Fine, I would take responsibility. Calmly, I said, but once everything is settled, I will no longer be part of the Evans family. Evans, what are you talking about? My mother snapped, pushing my shoulder lightly. I've already found a way to get the 500 million, I replied. Really? You found a way? My mother's eyes lit up instantly. Yes, but it might affect the Evans family's reputation. I spoke gently. What do you mean? She asked, suddenly anxious. I gave a faint smile. At tonight's party, I met a businessman from the Philippines. He knew about my situation and agreed to help me pay the 500 million. But he already has a wife and children, so I can only be his mistress. My voice was light, almost like the wind. I have no other options left. This is the best I can do. But that means our relationship won't be hidden anymore. How could you do something so shameless? My mother shouted, her voice trembling with outrage. The Evans family comes from a scholarly lineage. Our ancestors once passed imperial examinations. If you become someone's mistress, you'll disgrace generations of our family. Another relative chimed in accusingly. Evans, you'll destroy our reputation if you do this. I answered calmly. Then what do you expect me to do? Why don't you sell some of our assets and gather the 500 million yourselves to return to the Chu family? Silence fell over the entire room. No one said a word. Evans, my father finally spoke. The Chu family's 50 million can't go unpaid, but the honor of the Evans family also can't be destroyed. I let out a cold laugh. Then you can simply stop acknowledging me as your daughter. My sister-in-law, holding her pregnant belly, muttered, At least she still has some sense. My father continued, Here's what we'll do. The Evans family will publish a statement in the newspaper saying we're cutting ties with you. But it will only be for show. You'll still be our daughter. I knew this trick all too well. The moment the 50 million reached the Chu family, they would absolutely throw me out. But they didn't know. That was exactly what I wanted. The next morning at 9, I received a call from Logan Turner. Evans, check your notifications, he said. The money has been transferred. I quickly opened my messages. Sure enough, 10 minutes earlier the funds had arrived in my account. Today go settle the cancellation, he said. I'll send a driver to pick you up. Mr. Turner, can I ask you something? I hesitated. Go ahead. Could we avoid letting anyone know about our marriage for now? I said quietly. I don't want the greedy leeches in the Evans family to find out. They would try to cling to you and cause unnecessary trouble. I don't want that to happen to you. You don't want anyone to know? He asked. No, it's not that, just temporarily. I hurried to explain. All right, he replied. Then I'll send someone else to pick you up. Once the 50 million had been transferred back to Ethan Chu, and once the Evans family publicly announced they were cutting ties with me, whether Logan Turner chose to make our marriage public or keep it private, I would cooperate either way. Since the Evans family had declared a clean break, they no longer had any right to bother him. After transferring the money to Ethan, I saved the transaction record. My phone rang just as I was reading the Evans family's announcement of disownment on a newspaper page. I stared at the few lines of text for a long moment, then took a photo and carefully folded the paper. Ethan's voice came through the phone, hoarse. Evans, where did you get the money? 50 million isn't a small amount. Your family could never afford it. Who gave it to you? That has nothing to do with you, I replied. You've received your money. From now on, we have no connection of any kind. I was about to hang up when he suddenly called my name. Evans, do you think I did all this because of 50 million? Whatever your reason is, it has nothing to do with me now, I said coldly. Evans, he said sharply, you should know, if I hadn't spoken up for you, no man in Hong Kong would dare marry you. I let out a soft laugh into the phone. Really? If you don't believe me, go ahead and try. I didn't want to waste another second on him and ended the call immediately. Right as I hung up, my phone rang again. I was about to block the number until I saw the 3 words blinking on the screen. Logan Turner. I stopped. The Evans family announced they've severed ties with you, he said. How? How did you know? I asked in surprise. The speed of Logan Turner's information network was astonishing. I muttered softly, almost to myself. Evans, his warm voice flowed through the phone. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you don't have to force yourself to endure it. I hadn't planned on crying. Honestly, from childhood to adulthood, I had grown so used to being treated this way that I'd gone numb. "I'm fine," I said. But when someone shows even the smallest bit of concern, people tend to become a little weaker. The moment I tried to speak again, my voice trembled. "Mr. Turner, can I cry in front of you?" "Of course," he answered gently. "After all, starting tomorrow, I'll be your husband." My tears fell uncontrollably. "But before you become my husband," I continued, "I've already arranged another identity for you." "What identity?" he asked softly. I stayed silent for half a minute before answering. "For now, you're a 60-year-old Chinese-Filipino businessman, and I'm your mistress." Are you angry?" I asked anxiously. Through the phone, I heard him let out a faint sigh. "Evans, I'll see you tomorrow." "You still want to register our marriage?" I asked again, uneasiness rising in my chest. "Get some rest tonight," he said, his voice heavier than usual. "Tomorrow, wear your most beautiful dress." Logan Turner had clearly prepared everything in advance, so the marriage registration went smoothly. After we received the documents, he took me to the hospital. He held my hand tightly, making us appear like an incredibly loving couple to everyone around us. His grandfather was gravely ill. He forced a gentle smile at me, as if trying to comfort me, but in my heart, I couldn't shake the guilt, deceiving an old man nearing the end of his life. Someone who clearly adored his brilliant grandson and wished only for him to have a warm, peaceful family. But he had no idea I wasn't really Logan's wife. After leaving the hospital, Logan had an important meeting and told the driver to take me home to pack my things. The driver was an elderly man who had served the Turner family since Logan was young. His hair was completely white, but his presence remained steady and strong. When the Evans family saw the elderly driver open the car door for me, they immediately assumed he was my backer. After all, I was known as someone's mistress. No one cared about me. I went upstairs to pack. Only my father spoke a few words. "This is temporary. Just stay outside for a while," he said. "Evans, once the storm passes, we'll bring you back home." I deliberately pretended to be fragile, asking pitifully, "Dad, how long will that take?" "It depends," he answered vaguely. "Then please keep your word," I reminded him softly. "Of course," he replied without noticing my tone at all. As I rolled my suitcase out of the house, I could feel the collective relief wash over the entire Evans family. The driver brought me to Logan Turner's private residence. It wasn't a large villa, but it was peaceful and quiet, without the noise of servants constantly coming and going. The calmness made me feel more at ease. "The master and mistress have instructed that you may treat this place as your own home. Mr. Turner will come back in the evenings," the driver said. But around 8 p.m., I received a call from Logan. He said he had to return to the mainland for an important meeting and might not be back for a week. He told me that if I ever felt bored, I could go out, meet friends, walk around, have tea, anything but staying cooped up at home. "Then I'll stay at my small apartment for a few days," I said. "It's closer to downtown and more convenient." "When I return, I'll come pick you up," he replied. On the third day after Logan left on his business trip, a friend from a charity group I used to volunteer with called and invited me to a small high-society charity auction. The theme this time was raising funds for children with congenital heart disease, something I deeply cared about. When I arrived, I recognized many familiar faces, including Hannah. She was dressed as luxuriously as always, but her complexion looked terrible. Perhaps being thrown off the yacht had affected her more than I expected. I thought she hadn't seen me, but she turned, curled her lips into a cold smirk, and looked straight at me. She tugged the person beside her closer and continued chatting, her voice sweet but dripping with mockery behind me. "So she really went and became someone's mistress?" "Of course," another woman whispered. "I heard her parents were so ashamed they even published a statement disowning her." "I heard the guy supporting her is almost 80. Someone else added, "Old enough to be her grandfather." Oh God, how can someone like that be invited to a charity event? Exactly. We shouldn't be attending the same function as people like her. The atmosphere grew tense. The young socialite who invited me looked visibly uncomfortable. "Evans, maybe you can join us next time instead," she said politely, trying hard to keep her tone neutral. I didn't want to make things difficult for anyone, so I quietly stood up and left on my own. But right as I stepped outside, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan Chu. "Evans," he called out. I ignored him and kept walking. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist tightly. "You came here looking for me?" I pulled my hand out of his grip. "It has nothing to do with you," I replied coldly. "I just heard the news today," Ethan said, stepping forward again and blocking my way. "Evans, return the money." "Why?" I let out a faint, bitter laugh. "Wasn't 50 million exactly what you wanted?" Ethan's expression darkened. He tried to keep himself calm, but his voice tightened. "I told you. All you had to do was humble yourself once." "Humble myself? How?" I pushed him aside again. "Get on my knees like a dog to thank you for your mercy? Don't make me laugh." Everyone thought Ethan Chu, the young master of the Chu family, was generous and charming, but few knew that behind closed doors, nothing pleased him more than using money and power to crush others. "My life might not be worth much," I said coldly, "but I will never bow down to be humiliated." "Evans," Ethan lowered his voice, "you already have a bad reputation. Every move you make now will have consequences." Then he changed his tone, emphasizing every word. "You're still young, yet you've already become someone's mistress. You'll never have honor in this lifetime." "That's my choice," I replied steadily, "not yours." "Evans, I'm giving you a way out," he said, "but I don't need it." I walked around him without hesitation. His voice dropped into a threat. "Evans, I'm giving you one last chance. Think carefully and come find me." I didn't look back, but that same night, I received a call from my landlord telling me I had to move out immediately. I didn't argue. I packed only the essentials and went downstairs, only to find Logan Turner's car already waiting for me. The elderly driver stepped out and took my suitcase. "Miss Evans, the master instructed me to bring you home." "Mr. Turner? He's back already?" I asked, surprised. "He'll be on the morning flight," the driver replied. My eyes suddenly stung. "His work is all finished? Already?" I murmured. "We said he'd be gone for a week, but it's only been 4 days. The master was worried you might be unhappy or unsettled," the driver explained. "It's fine. His work is more important. He shouldn't let me delay anything." My voice was soft, but inside my heart churned with complicated emotions. Sitting in the car, I couldn't even describe what I was feeling. It was like I was both a pitiful person, abandoned by the world, and someone absurdly lucky to have stumbled into an invaluable lifeline. When we reached Logan Turner's residence and I stepped into my room, my phone rang. "Evans." Logan's voice came through, calm but clearly tired. A sudden wave of shame washed over me. To escape the Evans family, I had purposely smeared my own name. While he was dealing with exhausting, heavy work, I kept thinking that I was only causing more trouble. If I had stayed obediently at home, none of this would have happened. "Mr. Turner, I'm sorry," I whispered. His voice held a hint of helplessness. "Evans, I'm not blaming you. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk then." After he hung up, I noticed a friend request on WeChat from Logan Turner. I accepted it. His profile only had one post from 3 days ago, a photo of our marriage certificate. There were a few comments underneath, but I couldn't read them all, just 2 replies from him saying, "Yes, I'm married. This is my wife, Evans." That night, I posted only 4 simple words on my own page: "Getting married soon." Many people messaged me in shock, some even called. But when I picked up, it was Ethan Chu's voice. "So you finally understand, don't you?" he said mockingly. "I told you I'd give you a chance, but I never said I'd marry you." I let out a soft laugh. "And I never said you were the groom?" "You're really going to marry that old man?" he shouted furiously. "Evans, are you seriously going to destroy yourself like this? You'd rather be the second wife of a man who already has a family?" I immediately hung up and blocked his number. That night, my mind was a mess. I couldn't sleep. Only near dawn did I finally drift off. When I woke up, I saw a figure stepping out of the bathroom. I was so startled I nearly screamed, my heart hammering. "It's me, Evans," a familiar voice said. It was Logan Turner. I forced myself to calm down, though my face was still pale. Logan came over and pulled me into his arms, gently stroking my back. "Breathe. Relax. It's all right, Evans." I pressed my hands against his chest, and it took a while before I finally settled down. Only then did I suddenly realize I was wearing nothing but a thin silk nightgown. And Logan, having just showered, wore only a pair of pajama pants, nothing covering his bare upper body. I'm fine now," I whispered, my face burning as I slipped out of his arms. Sorry for scaring you, he said softly, brushing a messy strand of hair behind my ear. Why did you sleep so long? I had trouble sleeping last night, I murmured, embarrassed. The flimsy nightgown, the fact that I never wore underwear to bed, and being held tightly by him moments ago, there was barely a thin layer of fabric between us. My face felt like it was on fire. I instinctively pulled the blanket around myself, but doing so felt even more suspicious, like I was trying to hide something. While I was still flustered and confused, Logan guided me gently back onto the bed and pulled the blanket neatly over me. Get some more sleep. It's almost noon. Once you're up, we'll have lunch, he said casually before turning to leave. I let out a quiet breath of relief. During the day, things were easier. He spent most of his time working in his office, but around 9 p.m. when he returned to the bedroom, he didn't look like he intended to leave anymore. I had once thought about fulfilling the duties of a wife after getting married. After all, I had promised him I would cooperate fully with anything he needed. I watched him step out of the bathroom again that evening. After hesitating for a long moment, I finally whispered, "Are you sleeping here tonight?" Logan looked at me without answering. My heart tightened like a tangled thread. Maybe he only needed a wife in name. Maybe I had been overthinking everything. I hugged my pillow and slowly got out of bed. Then, "I'll sleep in the living room tonight," I said softly. Logan still didn't respond. I turned to leave, but after a few steps, a pair of strong arms wrapped tightly around me from behind. "Didn't you say you would cooperate with everything I asked?" His warm voice murmured right beside my ear. Mr. Turner?" I whispered, trembling as my back pressed against his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, steady, strong, and far too close. Logan gently brushed aside the strands of hair falling over my shoulder. "Evans, you're my wife now?" he said in a low voice. My entire body softened as I leaned into his embrace, my eyes fluttering shut. He lifted me effortlessly and laid me back onto the bed. When he leaned down and kissed me, my hands held onto him instinctively, my heart racing uncontrollably. His movements were careful, patient, never once pushing beyond what I could handle. "Tell me if you feel uncomfortable," he whispered, brushing his hand gently across my cheek. Everything after that was slow, tender, and full of unspoken emotions. Nothing rushed, nothing overwhelming. There was only warmth, closeness, and the quiet understanding between two people who, for the first time, allowed themselves to lean on each other. When it was over, I felt lightheaded, almost like drifting on clouds. Logan called my name softly, checking if I was all right. I nodded, wrapping my arms around him. There was a strange sense of dependence, gentle, natural, and unfamiliar. He pulled me close. "Rest for a bit. I'll run a shower for us in a moment," he said, his hand lightly resting over my heart as if making sure I was okay. I shyly asked if he was uncomfortable. Logan lifted my chin and kissed me softly. "Evans, if you keep asking that, I really won't be okay," he murmured with a faint smile. I quickly shook my head. No, it's fine." He didn't let go, only kissed me again, this time light and brief. "I just wanted a little kiss," he said. Every time he called me Evans in that gentle tone, I felt strangely cherished. Though I reminded myself that maybe he only sounded that way in moments like this. The next morning, Logan had already left early for work. I knew how busy he was. Someone in his position had countless responsibilities. I stayed home quietly, determined not to cause him any trouble. Even though I hardly went outside, these past few days had been the most peaceful I had ever experienced in my 21 years of life. For once, I wasn't treated like a bargaining chip. For once, I didn't have to endure the cold favoritism of my family, and for the first time, I felt what it was like to simply exist without fear. I didn't need to think too much anymore. I just needed to do things that made me genuinely happy. I even went back to the piano I had abandoned for years, bought an online oil painting course, and began learning again. Nearly a week passed without me stepping outside. One afternoon, Logan Turner called, telling me there would be a charity event that evening, and he wanted me to attend. He said he had already prepared an outfit and jewelry for me, and that a makeup team would come to the house soon. "You're attending the event too?" I asked. "I'll head over to pick you up once I finish my work," he replied. "What kind of event is it? Is it something I really need to go to?" "It's a charity fundraiser for children with congenital heart disease," he said. "I thought you'd want to be there." Hearing that, I couldn't help feeling touched. The last time, when Hannah deliberately spread false rumors about me, making me unable to attend, it was also a charity event for children with heart disease. I didn't expect Logan Turner to remember that. Because I had heart problems since childhood, I always cared deeply about events like this. I still remembered that after getting engaged to Ethan Chu, I continued going to the orphanage every month to volunteer, visiting children with illnesses and disabilities. But Ethan only mocked me. "You're just doing charity to polish your image. What an actress." He never knew I did it not for recognition, but because I had lived through that pain myself, and only wanted to help those children who were like me. "Mr. Turner, of course I want to join the charity event," I replied. "But if you appear with me tonight, our marriage will definitely be exposed. I want to ask if that will cause trouble for you or affect you in a bad way." From the beginning to now, the only person who wanted to keep our relationship secret was me, never him. I held my phone tightly, unable to understand. Why him? Why did he agree to my request? Why had he never once considered hiding our marriage? Why did he choose someone like me? "I'll tell you when you get home," he said. When I arrived at the event, I immediately felt countless strange gazes. What confused me was that charity events attended by Logan Turner always had extremely high standards. The Chu family could attend, but definitely not the Evans family. Yet Ethan Chu was there, and so was the entire Evans family. As I walked in, the Evans family was gathered eagerly around Ethan. Even my sister, Grace Evans, was staring at him with shy, burning eyes. "Evans, you actually dare show your face here?" Grace sneered. Mrs. Evans instantly scowled and marched forward. "Evans, do you even know what kind of event this is? You're embarrassing us. What will people think of the Evans family?" I looked at the elegant, refined woman in front of me, but felt nothing at all. "Didn't you already publish a statement disowning me?" I said. "So I have nothing to do with the Evans family anymore. If I embarrass anyone, it certainly won't be you." "But you still carry the Evans name," she said sharply. "Everyone in Hong Kong knows you're my daughter." "Then what exactly do you want me to do?" I asked. "Evans," she said coldly, "leave Hong Kong. Let your sponsor take you abroad or back to the Philippines." "Didn't Dad say that once the storm passed I could come home?" I asked. She looked at me as if I were a fool. "What foolish dream are you clinging to? The Evans family already removed your name from the genealogy." "Is that true?" I asked. "Of course it's true," she snapped. "That means that legally and even by blood, it meant that the Evans family and I no longer had anything to do with each other." "That's right." I looked around. Clearly, Mrs. Evans had said it loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Evans, you should leave now," Grace said, pretending to be gentle. "Mr. Chu is here too. Don't embarrass yourself in front of everyone." Ethan Chu finally spoke. "Evans, didn't you say you were getting married?" He let out a mocking laugh. "That man from the Philippines already has a wife and kids. He has mistresses everywhere. As if he'd ever marry you. So your social media post the other day was fake, wasn't it?" I hadn't even said a word yet when Ethan suddenly stepped forward and grabbed my arm tightly. "Evans, I'm asking you one more." Before he could finish, the entire hall fell silent. "Mr. Turner is here." Why would Mr. Turner attend such a small event? How would I know? But tonight's our lucky night. We get to see him in person. "He's walking this way. Oh my God, why is he looking over here?" Maybe because he heard the whispers, Grace's face flushed red with excitement, and Mrs. Evans couldn't hide her delight either. I turned and saw Logan Turner approaching. He was wearing a black tailored suit, looking as imposing and distant as ever. In that moment, I felt almost dazed. This man, the one I used to only see on TV and in newspapers, was now my husband. The man who had kissed me many times, called me Evans, and treated me with a gentleness I had never known. "Evans," Logan called out. It was the first time he addressed me by that intimate nickname in front of others. Not Miss Evans, but simply Evans. Grace's smile froze. Mrs. Evans went pale with shock. And Ethan Chu looked stunned and furious. I yanked my arm out of Ethan's grip, the frustration and humiliation swelling in my chest. Logan walked straight through the crowd toward me. "The dress looks beautiful on you," he said, "and the makeup suits you perfectly. You look stunning." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Tears threatened to fall. but before they could, Logan pulled me into his arms in front of everyone. "There, there," he murmured. "I was only a few minutes late, and you already let people bully you." When he said bully, his eyes swept coldly across the crowd. Mrs. Evans blanched. Grace instinctively stepped back. Finally, his gaze landed on Ethan Chu. "Mr. Chu," Logan said, his tone icy, "what were you saying to my wife just now?" The word wife hit the room like a bomb. The entire hall erupted in whispers. Ethan stared at him, stunned. "De wife? That's right," Logan replied calmly. "Evans is my wife." The moment he finished speaking, Mrs. Evans snapped back to her senses. She rushed toward me and grabbed my hand. "Evans, you silly girl. Why didn't you tell me such wonderful news?" I pulled my hand away. "Mrs. Evans," I said quietly, "I'm no longer part of the Evans family." Mrs. Evans froze, then forced a smile. "We're mother and daughter. No conflict is so serious that it can't be resolved in a day. Let's sit down and talk this through." I shook my head. "There's nothing left to talk about. The Evans family and I have no relationship anymore. Your own genealogy proves that." Mrs. Evans panicked, sweat beading on her forehead. She looked desperately at Logan. "Mr. Turner, you can see she's just a child. She's stubborn and still angry with me." "I'll listen to my wife," Logan said coldly, pulling me into his arms. "If Evans says she has nothing to do with the Evans family, then she has nothing to do with them." Mrs. Evans's face turned ashen, as if the ground beneath her feet had collapsed. "Mrs. Evans," Logan said suddenly, his tone still polite, but carrying a chilling weight, "as far as I know, for the past 15 years, the Evans family has never donated even a single dollar to charity." When Mrs. Evans heard that, she froze in shock. Sweat poured down her forehead as she stiffened, wanting to say something but unable to form a word. "So they've never donated at all? Then why do they force their way into every charity event? Probably to show off and gain attention. Truly shameless." Mrs. Evans could no longer stay. She hurried away with Grace, both of them leaving in embarrassment. Logan wrapped an arm around me. "Evans, let's go home." "But we still haven't donated to the children," I reminded him. Logan lowered his head and gently kissed my forehead. "My assistant already handled it." For a moment, I felt as if my heart stopped. The room suddenly became hazy, and that suffocating lack of oxygen sensation crept up again. I gripped his hand tightly while trying to steady my breath. "Evans," he murmured, lowering his forehead to mine. "Don't worry." I could hear the patience in his voice, but also the effort it took. It made me feel even weaker. I didn't want my fragile health to become a burden he had to bear. "Logan, wouldn't it be better if you married someone healthy?" I whispered. His expression grew more serious than ever. "There's no shortage of healthy women in the world, but to me, you are the best." He gently brushed away the sweat-damp strands of hair sticking to my forehead. "If your body isn't well, we'll treat it step by step. If Hong Kong can't treat you, we'll go to Beijing or Shanghai. And if that still doesn't work, we'll go abroad." "And if it never gets better?" I asked quietly. Logan leaned down and kissed me softly. "Then I'll simply live carefully, look after our home, and rule my empire while taking care of you." When the new year approached, he finally managed to clear his schedule. He took me to Beijing for treatment because the best cardiothoracic surgeons were gathered there. During the examinations, I couldn't hide my anxiety. "We'll do everything humans can do," he reassured me, smoothing my hair. "The rest, let fate decide. Go ahead, I'll wait for you here." After completing all the advanced tests, the elderly specialist with silver hair looked at me with regret. "I've reviewed your results. Your congenital heart condition is not severe. If you had undergone an early intervention as a child, you would have fully recovered long ago." I stared at him, stunned. I shook my head repeatedly. "Doctor, are you sure? My family always told me my condition was incurable. They took me to many hospitals. Every doctor said the same thing." Over time, I stopped going to hospitals. I was tired of hearing death sentences for my life. They always told me that only constant care and money could keep me alive. They said I survived because of their kindness. But when Logan embraced me, I realized tears were streaming down my face. "They lied to me, didn't they?" I choked out. "Why would they lie to me? Why treat me like that? If they didn't want to treat me, they could have abandoned me or given me to someone else. Why did they lie to me for all those years?" "Evans, don't think about them anymore," Logan said, tightening his arms around me as if trying to shield me from every hurt. "What matters is that you can recover now. Do you understand?" "I just can't understand," I whispered, my voice trembling. "If you can't understand, then stop thinking about it," he replied gently. "Focus on what's ahead. Don't look back." When spring arrived and flowers began to bloom, Logan brought me back to Hong Kong. I had been discharged and was recovering well. A few days earlier, his grandfather suddenly took a turn for the worse. The hospital issued a critical notice, and Logan had to rush back to Hong Kong overnight to handle everything. It wasn't until a few days later, when his grandfather's health finally stabilized, Logan let out a long breath of relief. We hadn't seen each other for half a month. When he stepped out of the car, he didn't walk toward me immediately. We had agreed earlier that the next time we saw each other, I would run to him like a healthy girl. He opened his arms and I lifted my dress slightly, running down the steps, through the garden full of spring greenery. It was the first time in my 21 years of life that I truly ran without fear. Even the chilly spring breeze felt warm. Without thinking, I rushed straight into his arms. I looked up to kiss him, but since I wore flat shoes and he was tall, I had to stand on tiptoe. He lowered his head and met my kiss gently. It had been nearly a year since our marriage, but that evening was the first time I saw him completely let down his guard. He held me close, his hands warm and steady. When he noticed the surgical scar on my chest from the operation, I instinctively tried to cover it, but he gently stopped me. "Is it ugly?" I whispered. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "You noticed it even back then?" "Not earlier than you think," he replied, a quiet smile in his voice. "So you saw me long before I knew about you?" I asked, half teasing. "Evans," he murmured, squeezing my hand, "is now really the time to reminisce?" Before I could respond, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over me. "Logan, I'm feeling lightheaded." Even though he didn't quite believe me at first, he stopped immediately, holding my shoulders firmly until I steadied my breath. My heart raced, but it was different now. No longer the sharp, suffocating pain of before, just a rush I couldn't quite control. "That." I wrapped my arms around him and whispered, "You don't have to worry about my health anymore. Whatever you want. It's okay." Over the past year, I had seen many sides of Logan Turner, the sharp businessman speaking flawless English, French, and Cantonese in multinational meetings, the calm leader negotiating at the Harbor District, the gentleman at home who even the staff dared joke with sometimes. But when he looked at me now, his eyes held unmistakable tenderness and a depth of affection I had never seen before. Later, as he held me close, I finally asked what had been on my mind. "Logan, was I the first?" He understood what I meant before I finished. He brushed a warm kiss against my ear, his fingers interlacing with mine. "Evans, I love you," he said quietly, his voice deep and certain. Side story: Logan Turner's perspective. Age 56, Evans often spent holidays and weekends volunteering. Unlike many teenage girls who became self-conscious as they matured, Evans had grown quieter and more withdrawn, perhaps because of her illness. The first time Logan saw her was when he accompanied his grandfather to a church service. She was volunteering there, guiding orphaned children from a local care home to join the choir. When the children began to sing, she sat there in a white dress, completely absorbed in playing the piano. When the performance ended and everyone gathered to take group photos, she should have stood in the center. Instead, she was pushed toward the edge. But she didn't fight for space, didn't show the slightest displeasure. She simply stood quietly at the end of the line and smiled. Almost no one noticed such a small detail. But my grandfather did. "Did you see that girl at the piano?" he whispered. "She's so young, yet already knows how to be patient." At the time, I glanced at her a few times without thinking much. I was 24 then, ambitious and focused solely on building my career. My heart didn't waver at all. She simply left a faint impression. The girl in the white dress was beautiful. The second time I saw her again was at her engagement ceremony with Chase Nguyen. Because my grandfather had connections with the Nguyen family, I couldn't refuse the invitation. People whispered about the bride that day, some compliments mixed with subtle mockery. They acknowledged that Evans was beautiful, but pitied her weak health. Others said that although the Nguyen family wasn't short on money, Marrying into a declining family like the Evans was clearly a loss for them. But for some reason, I found myself looking toward the stage. Evans wore an elegant white dress, yet she looked like a carefully decorated porcelain doll. Still, quiet, stripped of any spark in her eyes. I suddenly remembered that summer long ago, when the children sang like angels, and she, the young girl at the piano, looked gentle and serene. Even though she stood at the back of the group, she had smiled with such warmth. Her eyes had been dark and bright, carrying a quiet clarity. That memory didn't match the stiff, lifeless image of the girl standing on stage now. When Chase bent down to kiss her, I didn't know why, but I looked away. Work had become heavier and heavier, and I rarely thought about the girl I'd only met twice. Occasionally, during family gatherings, I would overhear her name. Poor girl, the Evans family practically sold her off. And Chase doesn't care about her at all. That's right, they've been engaged for 2 years, and he's never once visited her family. It's obvious this marriage won't lead anywhere. Then why did Chase agree to the engagement? If it was really because of her beauty, why did he treat her so coldly afterward? I found myself standing behind a thick row of cedar trees, unconsciously pausing to listen. I heard from a young lady in the Nguyen family that at first Chase did like her a little, one voice said. That's why the Evans family dared to ask for so much, and Chase still agreed. But that girl Evans, she's fragile and supposedly behaved improperly. That's impossible. I've met Evans many times. We often volunteered together. She's a very good girl, another voice argued. It was her sister Hannah who accidentally let it slip, the first voice insisted. So it can't be wrong. What exactly did she do that was improper? It seems that when she was around 16 or 17, she had dealings with several boys, and before the engagement with Chase, she even met another man alone at a hotel. No way. It caused a huge scandal. The Evans family spent a lot of money to suppress the incident. That's why she was brought back home right after the engagement ceremony. Chase had to cover up the matter to protect his reputation. At that moment, even though he had no personal feelings for her, Logan Turner could not help but frown. But from that moment on, Chase deeply resented Evans. Then why didn't he just call off the engagement? Someone asked. Maybe because he did have some feelings for her, so he couldn't bear to end it. Yet at the same time, he couldn't get over what she supposedly did. He's torn. No matter what, I still don't believe Evans would ever do those things. So tell me, the girl insisted, is there any proof of that hotel incident? I heard someone actually saw it happen. Let me try to find out more. She said that and slipped quietly behind the bushes, only to freeze when a voice came from behind her. What are you doing here? The young girl turned around in shock. Hello, uncle. She stammered awkwardly. Logan stepped out from behind the hedge, startling all the girls. They quickly stood up and greeted him respectfully, but his expression was far from pleasant. The cheerful garden instantly fell silent and tense. Are your assignments all done? He asked coldly. Instead of studying, you're here spreading rumors and gossiping about others? The Turner family's rules were strict, especially regarding the behavior and upbringing of the young women in the household. Casual chatter was one thing, but the things they said today had crossed the line. If the elders found out, these girls would be in serious trouble. His stern reprimand brought them to the verge of tears. He continued scolding them until one by one they cried and promised never to gossip about anyone again. Only then did he turn around and leave. For days afterward, his mood did not improve. That weekend, one of the rare times he had a moment of rest, he accompanied his grandfather to church, and there, unexpectedly, he saw her again. She still wore a simple white dress and played the piano for the children's choir. But she looked thinner now, and her eyes carried a quiet sorrow he couldn't describe. She pressed a wrong key. Her face turned pale with embarrassment, and the music abruptly stopped. Someone walked up to her and scolded her harshly in front of everyone. Her head lowered, tears shimmering in her eyes, tears that looked ready to fall but never did. Yet she resumed playing, this time flawlessly. Logan couldn't stop looking at her. A strange thought crossed his mind. If a single tear drops, I'll walk over to her. But she never cried. When he left the church, an uneasy tension pressed against his chest. Eventually, he returned and sought out the pastor. "Please tell her," he said quietly, "that she looked beautiful playing the piano in her dress today, and I hope she can be a little happier." Later, at a high society gala in Hong Kong, a single spontaneous decision sealed a fate he would carry for life. The moment he unhooked the clasp of her dress on that yacht, he had already decided, no matter the cost, he would take her away from Chase Nguyen and bring her to his side. But he never expected that she would be the one to ask to become his wife. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. He forced himself to speak as calmly as possible as he laid out his condition. "In 3 days, we'll register our marriage." She agreed. At that moment, he felt a joy so intense it resembled the thrill of youth all over again. When he gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear, she would never know how hard he had to fight the urge to kiss her. He wanted her to wear her most beautiful dress and go with him to sign their marriage papers. Step by step, he would bring Evans, the lovely, unforgettable girl from his memories, back to the light she deserved. And in the end, he finally succeeded.